This is how the CrystalBlast Elite 3.0 machine looks once you receive it off the crate. The padded armrest is something you would install later because it'll fit on the crate easier. You can fit it in through your smaller doorway if needed. If your doorway is 30 inches or smaller, it'll easily fit with the armrest. If your doorway is 28 inches or smaller, like a mobile home, then you'll need to have your armrest removed when you put the machine in your building. So basically there's just these Allen heads and then a couple nuts. Just kind of get it started. And they are slotted holes, so you can adjust it based upon your preference. So they're slotted, so you can adjust it higher or lower, depending on the elbow height that you want to be at. All right, so two other components you'll need to get for your initial setup on a CrystalBlast machine is an air hose, and you want something 3/8 inside diameter or more. If you go with hard pipe, that works as well, but a lot of our customers use flexible air hose because that way they can move the machine or the compressor as needed. So you don't want anything over 25 feet in your hose. If it's over 25 feet, you start to lose air CFM. So 25 feet is the max, unless your compressor is obviously farther away, then call IKONICS for recommendations. As far as air compressors go, this is a portable unit we bring to trade shows and seminars we teach. This is the absolute minimum. So a lot of our customers do glassware. With glassware, you blast at 30 PSI, and some other products like metal, light etching is 30 PSI. So this is adequate for that. Now, the number I use is the CFM at 90 PSI. The 90 PSI is what you need to the foot pedal minimum. Okay, I do recommend later in the video 120 PSI because, depending on the length of hose and your size of your compressor and other elements, 120 is what I recommend. But on air compressors, minimum's 90 for the foot pedal to operate correctly. So the CFM here is what we go by. So 6 is the absolute minimum for your CFM. That's cubic feet of air per minute. So if you're blessed at 30 PSI, this is adequate. Now, if you get into like deeper etching, crystal carving, stone etching, that type of thing, you want CFM in the 10 CFM range, but that's a rather large compressor. So if you're getting into the industry, you want to just do glassware items, do light etching on everything, this is all you really need to set up initially. But as your business grows, obviously you can upgrade your compressor down the road as needed. One thing that I don't recommend is plugging your compressor and your blower and light into the same dedicated circuit. If you did this, compressor runs, that unit runs at the same time, chances are your breaker's gonna trip. If it doesn't trip, what'll happen is your lights are gonna dim, your blower is gonna be less efficient, so your compressor's gonna kick in and at a lower rate as well. So yeah, you never wanna plug in your compressor and your light and blower into the same circuit. So here's your fitting from your compressor. These are already on the hose when you get those at the store. So you just connect it into your quick disconnect, pull that back and push, and it snaps in place. Pretty simple. Set your PSI to 120 PSI, which we don't have it running, but set that to 120 PSI. So this is a 1/2 inch with Teflon tape. Screw that on. And you have your air compressor quick disconnect fitting if you choose to go this route. This already has the Teflon the pipe dope already in there, so you don't need any white Teflon tape. So you just screw that on. I do as much as I can by hand, and then I tighten the rest of the wrench. And then you just take your other end of the abrasive, the air hose, and then you gotta pull back on the fitting. There you go. So once you get your air connection set up, what I initially do there is you want to leave your dust collector blower off so you can hear any air leaks in the system. So make sure your compressor is put on 120 PSI. So everything's onto the machine. So this valve here, this is your emergency shutoff. So it may be like this, which means air is stopped at that point, so it's not in your system yet. So to get operating, set your compressor to 120 PSI. Hose is connected, open up quick. Oh, it's already at 20. So it's at 20 PSI initially in the regulator. If you want to go to 30, turn it clockwise. So that's 30 psi maximum on that size compressor. So right now it's only at the gauge, it's not in your pot. So to get the air in your pressure pot, you pressurize. So this is a weird way to check for air leaks. Go from 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And then what you want to do is listen for any air leaks. Usually there might be an air leak in the quick disconnect. So you can kind of just give a wiggle to fix that air leak. If it does create a lot of issues, then you can get a hard pipe fitting to screw directly into it instead of a quick disconnect. But so generally it worked just fine for our systems. The next part of the step would be opening the door, turning your light on with the blower, and you'll find your abrasive 50-pound bucket. Remove it. And then when the critical part here is, since the hopper is triangular, you want to try to get the abrasive in the center where the screen is, so that way the abrasive drops vertically via gravity, just straight down into the pot. So that way you don't have to hit the side of the hopper or shake it down by any means. You can just pour it in the middle. It's going to save a lot of time filling the pot. So you take your 50-pound bucket of abrasive and you want to put in about 30 to 35 pounds, which is about half the bucket initially on your first charge. So you're going to take the bucket and pour it in the center. If you are going to be using the machine every day, hourly, then you can dump the whole 50 pounds of abrasive in the machine at once. The reason why we say 30 to 35 pounds initially is because you may not use the machine for a few days. So what will happen to the abrasive if you don't use it for a certain amount of time? The abrasive becomes stagnant, kind of compacted, and you may have abrasive flow issues down the road. So 30 to 35 keeps the pot, you know, I use the word fluffy a lot. It keeps, you have more air in the pot than abrasive, so that with more air, it's going to fluff it up, kind of like a snowball. So the abrasive stays clean, stays dry, and keeps that consistent flow going. So another part of the setup is the choke valve. To get equal sand and air mixture, you want this valve set to 45 degrees, which is halfway open. So usually on the Elite or any other CrystalBlast machine, you point at the front right leg of the machine, that's usually 45 degrees. Another way, just to show you a close-up perspective of the choke, can you see that? Mm-hmm. So as I choke it here, see that little eyelet closing? So that's basically what it's doing inside the choke valve. So you're cutting off half the air supply, so it allows the abrasive to drop into the mixing valve below, so you get that equal sand and air mix, 50-50 mix. When it's open all the way like this, then the air is going to bypass the pressure pot completely, so you get no abrasive. But it's a good way to clean out your lines or flush out your lines if you run into a lot of clogs. So that's a good flush system. When you close it all the way, which is never recommended, you get no air bypassing the pressure pot, so all the air goes into the pot and you're pushing the abrasive with gravity and all your, whatever your pot's pressurized at, down into the mixing valve below, and it's going to plug it up instantly. Okay, so you never want to close it completely. So again, 45 degrees is the initial setup. If you need to flush your system, opening up all the way, and that's about it. So one more part of the initial setup on your machine is opening this up, and you'll see below your filter vibrator bracket. And during shipping, you know, free companies get a little rough with any machines, right? So what we gotta do is just give it a quick tighten on them. So turn it this direction, which is counterclockwise. Just see them get a couple revolutions on it. Because what that does, what you want it to do, you want the filter not to move. Okay, so it doesn't move. Mm-hmm. So it's nice and tight. That way you don't get any dust up into the impeller. And when the dust gets up there, it'll go into your shop. So initial setup, just give it a couple revolutions on the black knobs. Keeps your seal nice and tight, no dust.
Perfect.